What we're going to do is look at our last lesson on solving systems by graphing. We're going to be looking at graphing a linear and graphing an exponential. What I'm going to do is start off with my linear. And when I'm looking at my linear, what I have is a horizontal line at y equals 2. So I go up to 2 and I draw a horizontal line. Now for my second graph, I have my exponential. With my exponential, I use my table of values, -1, 0, 1. When I plug in a -1, it flips the 2 to a 1/2. When I plug in a 0, anything to the 0 is a 1. And then when I plug in a 1, it gives me a 2. So I have -1.5. I have 0, 1, and I have 1 and 2. I have a horizontal asymptote at 0, and I draw my line. I see that it intersects at the point 1 and 2. For the next one, I'm going to do the same thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a vertical line at -1. So -1, I draw my vertical line. I'm going to do the same thing for my exponential. I'm going to do a table of values. I have -1, 0, 1. When I plug in a -1, it flips it to a 3. Anything to the 0 is a 1, and when I plug in a 1, it stays the same. So this time, -1 and 3, 0, 1, and 1 and a third. Once again, I have a horizontal asymptote at 0. The reason that it's at 0 is whatever our constant value is, whatever we're adding or subtracting, that determines it. So on the first two, we see that there's going to be none. But when we look at our third one, we're going to see that it's not going to be 0. It's going to be -1. So we draw our graph. And then what we notice is that it crosses at -1 and 3. For the third one, once again, what I like to do is I like to start off with the easy graph, and that would be my linear graph. So I have y equals x. Remember, that's the same thing as y equals 1x plus 0. So I have a point at 0. I go up 1 over 1. And that right there gives me a linear equation. For my second one, once again, I'm going to use the -1, 0, and 1. -1, I flip it. It becomes 1/5 minus 1 is -4/5. Anything to the 0 is 1. 1 minus 1 is 0. And when I plug in a 1, it stays the same. 5 minus 1 gives me a 4. So -1 and 4/5. I have 0, 0, and I have 1 and 4. Once again, as I said earlier, my horizontal asymptote is at -1. So I draw my horizontal asymptote at -1, and I have my graph. When I'm looking at this, I see that it crosses right here, which would be the ordered pair 0 and 0. So pause the video, try these next three, and see how you do. Okay, looking at the next one. What we see is y equals -1. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off at -1. We're going to draw a horizontal line. For the next one, we're going to use our -1, 0, and 1. If I plug in a -1, it flips. So 1/4 minus 2 is -1 and 3/4. Anything to the 0 power is 1. 1 minus 2 is -1. When I plug in a 1, it stays the same. So that would be 4 minus 2, which is 2. I have a horizontal asymptote at -2. And then -1, -1 and 3/4. 0 is -1, and 1 is 2. I see that my the two lines cross at 0, -1. Okay, looking at the next one. I have x equals 2. So right here, what I have is a vertical line. Once again, I like to start with my linear equation. I have a vertical line at 2. So I draw a vertical line at 2. Once again, for my exponential, I'm using the ordered pairs -1, 0, and 1. -1 flips it to 1/2. Anything to the 0 power is 1, and when I plug in a 1, it's a 2. My horizontal asymptote, since I'm not adding or subtracting anything, would be at 0. And so -1 is a half, 0 is 1, 1 is 2. The problem is that it doesn't cross. So I'm going to pick another point. I'm going to plug in a 2 because I see that it's approaching here and I want to see where it's going to cross. So when I plug in a 2, 2 squared is 4. So that would be the point 2, 4, which is what I was assuming based on my graph. So I see that my answer is 2 and 4. Okay, for the last one. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to start with our linear equation. And with the linear equation, we see the y-intercept is at 2. So we plot a point at 2. Our slope is -1. So we go down 1 to the right 1. Down 1 to the right 1 again to make sure the line is straight. Then for the next one, I'm going to use my ordered pair -1, 0, and 1. -1, I flip the 1/2, so that would be 2 times 2, which is 4. Anything to the 0 power is 1. 1 times 2 is 2. And when I plug in a 1, it stays the same. 2 times a half is 1. I'm not adding or subtracting anything. That means my horizontal asymptote is at 0. So -1 and 4. I have 0 and 2, and 1 and 1. So this one's a little bit different than the other ones because what we're doing is we're seeing that it's actually crossing twice. We have it crossing at 0, 2, and we have it crossing at 1 and 1.